Very exciting.
Laura, get out of there! Nice footwork.
Why, thank you.
Wow, this place is amazing. Might be a good place to use the rad mode of your binoculars.
You could be right.
So here we are. Now this is the major puzzle room in this level. It's also the gold puzzle. And it's a number of things. I mean, this is another example of a gold puzzle that maybe is slightly less badly judged than the others, but is nonetheless fairly annoying simply because, well, I'll say it requires a leap of logic that I wouldn't necessarily think most people would make. So obviously we have the standard depressible objects and things to depress them with. They loved their depressible objects. And as with all these things,
Wow,
light
that
puzzles
must have impressed the villagers back then.
are a sort of major part of all of these games. I don't know why though. You wouldn't have thought that ancient cultures would be particularly good with light and lenses and be able to detect light. But this exact, pretty but very similar thing to this involving focusing lenses turns up in Underworld, with a actually rather beautifully done statue of Shiva on top of his mistress Kali, the four-armed goddess of slaughter, who's notorious for being represented with her tongue out. And she, well, we'll get the story in a second. Now, if you have next generation content turned on, that section of wall is a totally different colour, because next gen content fucks the lighting if you have an ATI card. That is a breakable wall, and we shall find out how to break it later. Anyway, I need to obviously push off another one of these boulders to activate the pressy things. And each one of these pressy things, well, at least two of these pressy things, open up these statues, allowing you to climb up them. There is, however, no boulder on top of that one, so we need a boulder from a third source. Actually, the third source is a mild source of frustration. Was originally a mild source of frustration for me because, well, suffice it to say that I objected slightly. Well, you can actually see it there. It's there. It's not, I don't know. I just thought I had to go up there and push it off rather than grappling it off, because I didn't realise that Lara is strong enough to tear down a column that is maybe 3 feet thick and made of stone. Never underestimate the strength of Lara Croft.
I like that one.
It was nice, but it was in the way.
One of the things about having those chaps on your headphones talking to you as you do the levels is they give you a sense of human interaction and a sense of reaction to what you're doing. They provide essentially a form of personal feedback. Now, this does not exist in Underworld. In Underworld, without spoiling too much, one of them goes missing, and the other one doesn't talk to you during the levels. You no longer have a headset. So whenever Lara wants to talk or discuss a plot point, she monologues into a camera. It is so boring. And it just doesn't sound quite right, because it doesn't... It's just not what you would do. She obviously knows this stuff. For whose benefit is she recording this? Whereas in this, she's clearly having a discussing with them. Some of them will provide plot points she doesn't know. It gives a more rounded sense of her character, because there are some things which she doesn't know about, for example, mechanical things. There are some elements of the stories that she doesn't know, because she's obviously not an expert on everything. And this guy, Alistair, who despite being an effete English douche nozzle, is also someone who's been doing a PhD for 13 years on everything. And I just think that is a much neater way of doing exposition. And the rather shoddy approach of just monologuing is... It also makes Lara into even more of a Mary Sue than she already is, because she knows everything already. And as I was talking about the mythology in this, what they've done is they've taken, actually I think it's a rather fun approach of saying that all myths are based on one essential main huge event in the past. In this particular case they call it the monomyth, and I think that might actually be the proper name for it. And what that does is it gives them an excuse for letting you go through every culture, but also giving them something to link them together. I'll carry on a sec.
This is it.
Do you believe it's the same one we saw in Tiwanaku?
There's more than just one dance, but possibly.
So the shaman would be Merlin, and the staff would be whatever the hell King Arthur's sword was called. It's called coincidence. Funny name for a sword.
Anyway, so it gives you an excuse to go through various different cultures and nonetheless have it all linked together by a related story and goodies at the end. A too many cutscenes at this level. It keeps breaking up my flow.
Look at her. She's beautiful. We were so close before. So close.
Wonderful, Lara.
Do you notice anything familiar about her sword?
That's what Rutland was holding.
Except this is just a ceremonial copy. And what do we have here? The tip has broken off. My God. I had no idea it looked like this. I've seen this before at Waseda University in Japan. But I didn't know it had anything to do with these artifacts.
Hell, I'll get a hold of him right now.
It's not there anymore. It was stolen by Shogo Takamoto.
Takamoto? Yakuza has nothing to mess with, Lara.
I don't care, Zip. I want that piece. Arrange a meeting.
Okay, but... Hang on. I got Anaya calling on her cell. I'm patching her through.
Lara, can you hear me? Those bastards from town are here, and they're coming down after you.
Well, this is a tune. I'll make them feel at home.
And now for the gold.
I wasn't keeping track of Anaya. I got distracted. She seems safe for now.
It's alright. Just let me know if our mercenary friend's getting closer to her.
Got it. How will you make it back with the floor missing?
I suppose I'll have to take the high road back.
Here comes the solution to the gold puzzle. And, well, it requires a slight leap of logic that I wouldn't necessarily say most people would make. Anyway, yes, discussing the approach to mythology. In Underworld, they keep the idea of the monomyth the same, but they actually make a mistake. And the mistake they make is they say, well, although there's a monomyth, it's a Norse monomyth. Whereas in this, it's just implied that every culture has some veracity to their legends. In Underworld, they just flat out say, okay, there's Jormungandr, there's Thor, there's Mjolnir. And it just doesn't add up. And it means that the levels all turn into effectively the same kind of proto-Norse architecture towards their ends. And it makes it very architecturally boring. Whereas in this, most of the levels have a completely distinct architectural style all the way through. Whereas in Underworld, they all tend to go into this huge, monolithic, sort of bluish-grey stuff that looks deeply boring. And it's not sufficiently distinct from, for example, the Aztec blue-grey stuff that they show you in it as well. So, that's my major complaint there. And plus, it's not a particularly interesting architectural style. Oh, look, a breakable wall. Now, oops, there's the stone. Now, as you can see, the 3 buttons, one of them is a different size. Maybe you can see that, I don't know, it's quite hard to tell from up here. But the one I'm facing at the moment, the middle one, is slightly larger than the other 2, and this means you can put 2 stones on it. Well, it doesn't mean you can put 2 stones on it, I think it's meant to imply that you're meant to put 2 stones on it. There you go. Come on. Just, yes, there we are. And consequently, when we stick the second stone on here, obviously the dice will go up another level. Yes, I was slightly peeved when I found it as well. Just check, how am I doing on the old rewards? Ooh, 100%. There we are. And that is that. Some gold puzzles better than others. Don't particularly like that one. I would prefer that these puzzles were more a case of you can see what the puzzle is, but it's too hard to solve, rather than the puzzle is incredibly easy to solve. You just have to